Don't you wanna talk
And now,
about it? Let's talk
Miss
about
JSpire.
it. Don't you wanna talk about it? Let's talk about it. Don't you wanna talk about it? Let's talk about it.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the JSpirations live show. I am your host, Mrs. JSpire. So it is Friday and it is Fill Up Friday Live, but we are doing something just a little bit different tonight. Tonight we have a special guest in the studio and we are so excited to have her. She is Reverend Dr. Portia Rochelle. So we do want to welcome you to our studio, Dr. Rochelle. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just pleased to be here.
And we are so excited to have you. So we want to take a little bit of time to talk about JSpirations Live and talk about who we are and what we do. We also want to give our people, our Philip Friday faithfuls, time to come in, as well as your supporters as well. So as I said before, I am Mrs. JSpire, and I am the creator and host of JSpirations Live. So you all may be asking, what is JSpirations Live? Well, JSpirations Live is a motivational podcast, but it's also a motivational movement. We started back in 2018. There was so many things happening in the world and so much negativity happening on social media. So I said, you know what, God, you put so much in me. And so I want to be able to pour into people and bring some inspiration, some motivation, some positivity, and some JSpiration to social media. And so JSpirations Live was born. Over the last 5 years, we have had several different guests on our show. We talk about so many different things, and we don't often talk about politics. We did, I think, back in 2020 because we wanted to make sure that we were educating voters and citizens on what they needed to have when they went to the polls, motivating people on how to research their candidates, and just to make sure that they were in the know. So tonight, I'm excited to have you because this is not an endorsement, but it is a call to action, right? It's a call to make sure that people know who's running for office, people know what their rights are, people are motivated to go to the polls, and people are educated. So I'm so excited to have you. So you all make sure you give us some love, give us some likes, and most importantly, go ahead and share because we want to make sure that we are educating our community. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest tonight. I'm so excited to have her. So Dr. Rochelle, for 46 years, she has called District C her home. She has over 3 decades in North Carolina government, overseeing environmental health and natural resource regulations. She has honed her skills in collaboration and policy development to benefit the citizens of Raleigh, North Carolina. As a social justice advocate, she fiercely champions the best interests of the community, challenging those who oppose that for its progress. Dr. Rochelle is the founding pastor of Ward for Transformation Church and Outreach Center in the beautiful city of Raleigh, North Carolina. She currently serves as Associate Minister of Juniper Level Missionary Baptist Church. She is also a graduate of Wake Tech Community College and Shaw University, HBCU. And so again, we would like to welcome you, Dr. Rochelle.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I also want to give you the opportunity to share if you have not shared. And again, anyone that's coming on, please make sure that you share the live. We want to make sure that we are educating as many people as possible.
I did hit the share button.
Okay, so we're going to talk about so many different things tonight. But as I talked about in the intro to JSpirations Live, we are a motivational podcast. We want to make sure that we are sewing into people. So the first thing I do want to ask you, Dr. Rochelle, is what motivates you?
I have always been a community servant. I learned from my mother to serve others. And I started out helping elderly in the community. As I was helping her navigate through life, I just sort of picked up the habit of helping other people, especially the elderly. I love serving my community, and I just love being around people and helping people. I call myself the community servant.
Okay.
Dr. William J. Barber, former president of the North Carolina State NAACP, knew about my works here, and he calls me the community pastor. So
Okay.
that's the hat I wear.
And so I love that because, oftentimes when we're growing up, we see our parents, right? We see our parents helping and working in the community. And if you're like me, I saw my mom and the first thing I said was, I don't want to do those things.
Exactly.
But somehow it becomes a part of you and you end up doing all the things that you said you don't want to do because that's your purpose. So I love that that motivates you.
Yes.
What do you do for self-care?
Oh, I go to the spa. I go on vacations. This summer, I went to South Africa, came back, rested a little, and then I went to Italy. So I just enjoy living life to the fullest. I take care of myself because there's a lot in me that God would have me to share. So I have to be in good shape.
That's
So
right.
I take very, very good care of myself. I'm eating better. So I'm just enjoying life.
And I love that. So one of the questions I like to ask when we talk about self-care, because you said a lot of exciting things. I love that you traveled to Africa. I love that you're taking time to explore the world. You've also been to Italy. But tell me or tell us a little bit about what are some of those self-care things that you can do every day? Because I believe that that's important, right? Because we can't always go on vacation, even though we would love to. But what are some of the subtle things that you do that you have that you enjoy that you can do every day to ensure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're practicing self-care?
The things that I try to do every day is maybe listen to a little soft music before I begin the day, before I leave the house, and pray. I pray longer at night than I do in the morning. That's just me because I don't get up too early. So by the time I get up, I'm preparing breakfast or brunch and listen to some music, and then I pray. And then I send motivational scriptures to different people in my inbox. What else do I do? I make sure, I try to make sure that I sit and calm myself before I go out and face the world. Because if you're not in the right attitude, when things jump off, you cannot be pleasant in all situations. So I try to warn myself to be in my best behavior when I leave the house, no matter how I'm provoked, no matter what comes my way that I disagree with. I bring up a scripture that helps me settle myself. So those are the things I practice on staying settled.
I love that, and I asked that question because, sometimes we love to get massages and things like that, but we can't always do it. So I like that you said, regardless of what comes your way, you've already set the foundation, you settled yourself before you walk out the door to face the world. So I love that. I think that is, that's an important message.
Yes.
So we're going to jump into a couple things tonight. So one of the other things, tell us a little bit about, it's a two-part question. When and why did you become interested in politics?
You got fuzzy.
I got a little fuzzy. I was
Yes.
asking, it's a two-part question. Tell us a little bit about when and why did you start, you become interested in politics?
The why is because I wanted to get more involved in what's happening in my community. I served as the president of the Raleigh Apex for 10 years, and I was pushed to the front line of issues that affect the people in the community in a negative way. I had to help settle disputes. I had to collaborate with police officers, school superintendents, things of that nature, landlords, all of that to help people get issues resolved. And while I still do a little of that, I'm no longer the president, but people in the society here are still faced with issues that impede or hinder their constitutional rights. So I still get calls. So I'm still advocating, and I will continue advocating. I've marched, I've advocated, I've done press conferences, but I want to move to a different level because the city council is where policy is made. And I want to be at the table when policy is implemented that affects our community.
So I love that. So it sounds like you're not just the leader, but you are a leader. And so there is a difference.
Yes, there is.
And so I love that. I love that you said that you wanted a seat at the table. And sometimes, people don't think that we deserve a seat, or sometimes we don't think that we deserve a seat. But I love the fact that you know that you deserve a seat. And it sounds like even if there's not a seat there, that they didn't put one there for you, that you're going to make one for yourself, or you're going to be in the room. Even if you have to stand, you just want to be in the room to support the people. I love that. And so everyone talks about the presidential race, right? Every time it's time for a presidential race, there's a lot of, people are knocking on people's doors. There's posters everywhere. There's phone calls. Everybody's canvassing. But tell us a little bit about why it's not just important to vote during the presidential election, but why is it important to vote and be aware during local and city and state elections?
That's a very good question, because as you well know, the numbers go up when there's a presidential election. I ran for city council at large a few years back, and there was no presidential election going on. And a large percentage of people stayed home and did not vote in the local races. I encourage people to vote in the local races because there's a lot on the ballot. Your local judges, the judges make decisions over our lives, our families' lives, if they end up in court or if they need to settle a dispute. You have the school board leaders that are being voted on, as well as the city council. And you have to look at the duties of all of those candidates to realize and understand how your vote will put the right person in office. If you stay home and just negate your vote, you're doing a disservice to you and your community. So it's important to vote every election. If you're not well and can't go to the polls, there are remedies. You can get the absentee ballot, all of those things, or you can go curbside. It's important for people to not lose the opportunity to take advantage of their constitutional right. The city government is very important. Housing, they help, make developments for people. We have a housing crisis all over the U.S., but the city is basically in charge. I live in Raleigh. The city is basically in charge of helping to get the homeless off the street. And those are one of the issues that I'm pushing. Housing, homelessness. It's time out for Raleigh to continue to have people with tents in the woods. We've got to look after our people. I feel it's our God-given responsibility to look after everyone. We are our sisters' keepers. We are our brothers' keepers. And at that city council table, we can look after people. We can help promote businesses when they come in to go above the $7.25 an hour minimum wage. We can do that.
I can feel your passion. I can hear your passion. And so we're talking about that. Let's talk about, I know there's a couple of things and I know it's many more, but there's definitely a few things that you are running on because it's issues that matter to you. Things like housing, and then you have citizen engagement, and then equal pay. So let's talk about those three things that you are running on based on how important it is. So let's break those things down. You've already started talking about housing.
Yes.
And I know you have, like your bio says, you've lived 46 years in District C.
Yes.
And you're talking about the city of Raleigh in general. So let's talk about housing, and then let's touch a little bit on the citizen engagement and equal pay, because we want to hear your heart on all three of those topics.
Yes, I've said just about at each candidate forum, I think it's a disservice that we send our police out to shut down the homeless camps. They can be used otherwise. A few years ago, I did a poverty tour here in Wake County, and I discovered some things that I were not aware of. I was just aware of the tents that I could see. I didn't know that they were hitting communities. But now most of those have been found, and people are having to be here a couple of weeks, then they move and go here and go there. And it's time out for that. The city of Raleigh has funds. They've just passed a bond. We did a bond in the last election, and now those are coming into fruition, the housing developments for low-income people. But as fast as they build them, they're taken, because Raleigh is growing. A lot of people are coming to Raleigh. They're hearing it's the best place to live. It's the nice place to live. And it is a wonderful place to live. But I want each and everyone, whether they want a house or rent an apartment, to find something that they will be able to afford with the income that they make. Now, equity in pay. I don't know who can live off $7.25 an hour. I can't. And we need to make sure that when we bring new businesses in our city, that we negotiate that. We know what the general statutes say, $7.25, but we can do better. And if people earn a higher wage, then they may be able to save to buy a house, especially here in the city where they work. A lot of our people, police, fire people, fire persons, they don't live here in Raleigh. Why? Because they can't afford to rent. They can't afford to buy a house. So we need to make sure that we look after them. And I was endorsed by the union, E150. Why did they endorse me? Because they know for years I've been on the front line pushing a livable wage, at least $15 an hour. That is a good start from $7.25. But we can do better. We can go for more. And a good salary helps keep our small businesses and the larger businesses going. It helps sustain the community. So we need to flip the script and make sure that each citizen has the opportunity to earn a good salary. Now, my third issue is citizen engagement. I served as a public hearing officer in state government. Before we could get a policy in place, we had to hold a public hearing, take comments, explain what we were doing, go back and reevaluate the comments, and go change the rules that we had proposed if we needed to, or give further explanation. The current city council that we have does not always do that. And that's hurting the community. The people are feeling invaluable. They just feel like that people don't care about them. And I want to change that.
And I love that, because there's a couple key words that I heard you as you're speaking your heart and talking about what's important to you. You use the word we a lot. And I really like that, because it shows that you really understand that it's not something that you can do by yourself or something that you want to do by yourself, but that you know that it's going to take the community, it's going to take other politicians to be able to support the city and to support the citizens. You also said the citizen engagement. And you don't hear a lot of people running on that, wanting to have citizens engaged in the decisions, engaged in the conversation. So I love that as well. So those are the three things that you are running on. And I'm excited about that, because I can feel your passion as you're answering those questions. And people do want to know that they are included and that they are important, because they have to live in the city, they have to work in the city, and they are part of the community. Some people say that their vote doesn't count, right? I've heard that several times, whether it is a local election, state election, or we are voting for president. People will say my vote doesn't matter. I'm just a number. It's just a number. What do you say to that?
Our votes do matter. If you look back at the history, not everyone had the right to vote at first. There were several amendments to the Constitution that gave African Americans the right and the opportunity to vote. And that's why I am just so frustrated when I hear people say my vote doesn't count. Look at Medgar Evers. He was bombed. His car was bombed because he was simply registering people to vote. And there are other issues, but that's a clear sign that your vote counts. If your vote doesn't count, why did the amendment have to be, the Constitution had to be amended so many times for us to become citizens or humans, you know? And that's what I want people to understand. Your vote matters. Your vote counts, because there have been so many oppositions to keep you from voting. The NAACP fought for photo ID because we saw that as another sign of poll tax. Okay, we fought against it. They were going to charge us to get it. Now, it went to the high court, and they said it's discriminating. You don't need a photo ID. However, when people failed to put the right judges in place to keep it where we had it, the judges that were elected changed it and slipped in the requirement of a photo ID, where if they had put people in the right place, it would have never changed. Now, they did be kind enough to say they're free, but you still have to go to DMV or the Board of Elections to get the picture taken. But things like that matter. So I want people to understand that your vote counts, because there's something called electoral college. And there's citizens from each state that look at the results of the elections, and they vote according to how you voted in your state. So if you don't give them a good average, a good number to use, then they don't get to vote accordingly. I forget how many North Carolina vote. I forgot to look that up. But each state has so many electoral votes that they can cast. But if we don't tell our electoral committee who we want in office, we're in trouble.
And that's why it's so important. That's why I wanted to ask the question about, why are those other elections so important, right? You talked about the judges, because whoever is president, they're able to put whoever they would like to have. And so that's why we have to vote, right?
Exactly.
We have to vote, because that is the way that our voices are heard. And I love that you said that if it was not so important, if it did not matter, why do people work so hard to keep us from voting? Exactly. Right. And so that's really important for people to understand. Anything that's going to be beneficial to us, and people or someone, regardless of what it is, if they're trying to keep it away from you, if they're trying to encourage you not to do it, you doing it has to be important. So I love that. If you are, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We need to pay attention to the referendums that's on our ballot too. Here in North Carolina, there are two, and one is slipping by a lot of folk.
Tell us about it.
Okay, it's a constitutional amendment where they want to change the people that can vote from now and into the future. But what people are missing is it's not including the citizens that are born here. For example, if immigrants come in and they have children here, they are born here, they're citizens of the U.S., but the Constitution here in North Carolina is trying to change that. So we've got to know when to vote against and when to vote for. So why would you eliminate people that are born here?
Right. And it's very It's very important to read the ballot. You know, there are a lot of sample ballots, and like you said, a lot of referendums, and you do have to read it. You have to understand it. So, would
Okay.
you? I know, like I'm asking you, like, would you encourage people to ensure that they're doing research before they go, not just voting based on a sample ballot that they have received?
Right. I encourage people not to wait to get to the polls to get a list of names. Here in North Carolina, we have an agency called Democracy NC, and
Okay.
they do the research for us. They have the names and what the platform is for the different candidates on the state level, and we can read up on the candidates if we don't want to do our own research, so that when we go to the polls, we know who we're going to vote for. Now, there's something very important, and this is what I encourage book clubs, churches, any groups, to make sure that you go on your Board of Elections website and pull down a copy of the actual ballot that you're going to get when you arrive to the polls. You do your homework, you make phone calls, you call Rochelle and say, what do you think of this candidate? Or you call Peggy and say, what do you think of this candidate? Do your research and mark your ballot, the sample ballot, print it off.
Mm.
And I ask churches to do that, not just for the elderly, because some of the younger generation are not keeping up with who these people are. Okay, so you print out, you have a little tea after church or what have you, and you go on the website, you print out those sample ballots for each person. You don't tell them who to vote for, but you let them mark the ballot as if they're voting. When they finish, they go to the polls, they take that marked up sample ballot with them. It is legal to take it in with you. Now, you cannot put it in the machine.
Okay.
You use it to mark the original ballot that they're going to give you there at the polls. And you do your homework. It makes it easier. You're not standing there all day trying to decide who to vote for. You've already done it. You've done your research. You go to the polls, you cast your ballot. And I'm encouraging people to take a lot of patience with them. It's always a long
You've been
line.
reading my mind, Dr. Rochelle. That was my next question. You know, people will stand in line for many things, right?
Yes,
Not
football
generalizing
tickets.
or stereotyping, but we'll stand in line for sneakers, we'll stand in line for meals, we'll stand in line for movies, we'll stand in line for parties.
Football
Um,
tickets, yes, everything.
Football tickets, basketball tickets, and I mean, and I love all of those things, but we will stand in line for a lot of things. Um, what do you say to people who say, you know, the lines are long and I don't have time to do it? I heard you say take a lot of patience with you.
Take a lot of patience with you. Do your homework before you go, so that when you do get in there to vote, it doesn't take you as long as it did some of those other people, because they didn't do their homework.
And it's
It's just
worth it,
that
you all,
simple.
like voting. It is our livelihood. It is important. And it's not just important for us, but it's important for our children and
Our
it's
future
important for
generation.
our children's children. And so when we're
Yeah.
voting, when we're making those decisions, when we're making the decision to vote or not to go vote, we have to
Mhm.
remember it's not just about us. But Dr. Rochelle has said several times, she has used the word we.
Yes.
It's about us. It's something that we can't do, you know, do by ourselves. So Lucy just said that early voting is the way. So you can still early vote in North Carolina right now up until when?
Our early voting ends here in North Carolina on November 2nd. Okay. So what is early voting? Early voting means that if you're not a registered voter, you can go do an early voting period. Take a few IDs like bills in your name with your current address. If your driver's license is not current, then you're going to have a problem. DMV is backed up and people can't get their new addresses put on their driver's license. So what you need to do is to take a few things with you. Go on your website to see what those things are that require you, that not require, that will allow you, that they will accept. And you can take those things with you to early voting. You can register and vote during early voting. Now, here in North Carolina, especially in Raleigh, we have a voting site at the Board of Elections. So what I've asked some people to do is, if you know that you are going to have to do all of that, go inside the Board of Elections office and get your photo ID, so that when you go around there to that line, you don't have to go through that process. Okay? You can just go around there and vote right there on the same spot. Okay? So I'm trying to help people to prevent them from losing their patience and, being frustrated. Now, that's not going to happen on November 5th, on election day. If your mess is not together, you may end up with the provisional ballot, which is constitutional for you to get it. But all provisional ballots are not counted. They have to go through, I'm going to say a hearing for lack of a better word. They have to go through the process and look at the reason you put that you needed to vote provisional. It could have been eliminated during early voting. So I encourage people to go to early voting, especially if you don't have everything in order. And another thing I want to remind people of is, if you have college students that are still using your address back home, if your state allows, you need to request an absentee ballot.
Is it too late?
No.
Okay.
The last date that you can request an absentee ballot is October 29 here in North Carolina. I don't know about any other place, because a lot of people think the absentee ballot is just for the military. So I did a lot of voter education, and I have to make sure that I tell people that, no, it's for any citizen of the United States of America. Get your absentee ballot if you know that you don't want to go stand in line. If you know you don't want to go do curbside, get the absentee ballot. In some places it needs to be notarized. Do all of that. But if I were in church, I would say repeat, but
you can say
get that ballot back to the Board of Election by 5:00 p.m. on November 5. So it is important that you do that.
So I want to go.
I was going to say another thing now. You can also vote at early voting if you don't have the proper ID, but you have to remember to go back and take the photo ID. Who wants to go back through all of that?
Right.
And you may forget. So get everything in order before you get in that line if you can.
I was going to ask, I've heard you mention the curbside several times. And so I want to say this for anyone that's, in North Carolina, but I know that curbside is available. So if you have someone that's elderly, you have someone that may have a disability, you have someone that maybe just had surgery, don't let them use that as a reason not to vote. If they can get in the car, if they can be driven somewhere, make sure that they do that. Let me ask you about this too, because I know you've done a lot of volunteer work. Yes, and during this time with voting, how are you? Because I know you've been in your community for 46 years in your district. How are you encouraging people in your district to make sure that they are volunteering by getting other people to the polls that may not have transportation, not because they can't stand in the line, but they don't have transportation. They're not going to get on a bus. How are you encouraging that in your district?
Okay. I want to go back to curbside. If you've just had a serious injury, you can vote at curbside.
Okay.
When I was there earlier this week, a man drove up, his wife had broken her ankle. Curbside. He went in to vote. She did curbside. So there's no excuse. If you can't go in and vote, you can do curbside. Okay? They cannot deny you. You have to sign an affidavit saying that you're having some issues, and they'll bring the ballot to you. Okay? And you don't pull off. You wait for them to put it in the machine and come back and tell you it went in.
It went in. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Now, your question was volunteering. What we do here in our community, churches get together and share their church vans. And then there are people like myself that take people to the polls, their neighbors, elderly people that they're used to looking after. We make sure that they get to the polls. Now, the city of Raleigh, one year they provided the Go Trolley to pick people up at certain points and take them to vote. I'm not sure if they're doing that this year or not. I didn't do my homework on that, but they may be. But there is no excuse for not getting a ride. When I was president of the NAACP, I had about 10 churches that said, whatever you need, just tell me where to go pick them up and we'll take them. So people are willing to do that. If you need a ride, you need to reach out to your local organizations to see if there's someone to pick you up and get you to the polls at no cost.
At no cost.
And they don't tell you who to vote for.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Because this is about, and, you know, I've said it several times, like, you know, this is not an endorsement, but this is a call to action. And so we don't want to tell you who to vote for. We want to just encourage you to get out and to activate your right to vote and to make sure that your voice is heard. So you all, if you are just tuning in or if you're watching the replay, we are talking to Reverend Dr. Portia W. Rochelle. She is running for Raleigh City Council in District C. And so everyone that is watching from Raleigh or the state of North Carolina, or if you have family, you have friends that live in Raleigh, please be sure to share this video. We want to make sure that we get all the information out that we can. And if there are other candidates that would like to have an interview with JSpirations Live, please be sure to reach out. Our goal is to make sure that people know what their rights are, to make sure that they know what they need when they go to the polls, that they know where to vote, how to vote. And when I say how, I don't mean for who, but how to vote as far as knowing who's on the ballot, who are you voting for, what issues are important to them, what's going to be beneficial to you, to your family, and to your community. So we do have a question in the comments, Dr. Rochelle, and if you know the answer, I want you to be able to answer it. And if not, then we'll move on. But if you early vote and you pass away prior to November the 5th, does your vote count?
I do not remember the answer to that.
Okay. And that's fine, because I thought that I knew it too, but I'm not quite sure. So
Yeah.
that could be something that we find out. But I actually think once your vote is counted, I think that it does count. You just, no one can vote in your name after you are deceased. But I think that once it goes in, then it is counted. But that may be something that we look into. So this is I have a few more questions, and I also want to, you to be able just to, share your heart a little more too before we finish the interview. But there are several people, I've spoken to people, I've heard people mention it, but people are always sometimes fearful. What advice would you give to someone that may be interested in politics, that may be interested in running for city council or running for school board, but they're fearful, right? They're fearful about getting started, because you have to have tough skin and you have to be grounded. So tell us, what advice would you give, even, to young people that's been thinking about it and not quite sure what to do?
Exactly. Very good question. As I spoke to the youth at my church a few Sundays ago, I encourage them to start now learning about serving in local government. That's a good start. Some people jump to Senate, some jump to whatever. But if you start on the local level, then you're in position to learn what goes on in your community and how you can help make changes that will make your community better. I have a good friend that's running for Senate, her first time running for Senate. She ran before as mayor of her town. She didn't win. The second time she ran as soil and water conservation, she won. Now this time she's running for Senate. So you never know where you're going to end up. So I would encourage anyone that likes helping people, being a community servant, being a leader, and find people that will encourage you and help you. Don't jump out there by yourself. No one knows that you're running but you. You need My mentor, I was in a mentoring group led by Dr. Cynthia Hale, and she wrote a book entitled I'm a Piece of Work. You got to know that you're a piece of work designed by God. And you got to surround yourself with people that appreciate you, that uplift you and encourage you. And that's how you make it. You surround yourself with people that's going to help you, that want to see you do well and know that you can do well. Okay? I think I lost my train of thought. Did I answer your question?
You did answer my question.
Okay.
And I was going to say too, I was listening. I was also just making sure we didn't miss any questions because we have a lot of comments. So Honeybee says, thanks ladies, it's been very informative. You are appreciated. Your time is valuable. Peggy Walker says, great information. Sheila Crump says, great discussion, great information, a great event. Then we have a few people on that saying, vote. And I know they are. But you did answer my question. I was going to say too, because I want you to speak on the volunteer part of it, because a lot of people do want to jump out and run. But for the people who are running, they could use the support, right? And that's another place where they could learn, especially young people who want to know how everything runs.
There are so many ways you can help a candidate. One is you can do phone banking. I know. I've seen it on Facebook and everywhere. People are tired of text. They're tired of phone calls. But sometimes you are fortunate enough to get some very kind people that say, oh, I'm glad you told me about Portia Rochelle. So you know her? Yes, she's such and such and such. I encourage you to vote for her. Those things help. Another way that people can volunteer is at the polls. Hand out materials. I spent a lot of money getting some nice little cards printed up that tells you about Dr. Portia Rochelle. It says on here that she is a proven community leader.
Proven.
Okay? Proven. She has a track record that she follows through on anything that comes to her attention. You hand out these cards to the people and say, would you consider voting for this candidate? And you also hand out, there are two groups that endorse me. You hand out that material. Now, some campaigns are fortunate enough to have enough money. Another way you can help, if you see a candidate that's running that you support, send them at least $10. You can buy yard signs, those pretty signs that you see on the road that people are taking down if they don't like them. They cost money.
They cost money.
Yeah, but $10 can buy at least 2 signs for a candidate. You see what I'm saying? So you can help in that way. You got to pay to get these things printed up. So those are ways that you can help a candidate that you want to see succeed. Because if you don't have road signs out there, I had people calling me saying, where are your signs? Where are your signs? I don't see them. And I would kind of say, well, baby, I'm waiting for some donations to come in. Oh, you can't be afraid to ask, because people don't think about that.
Right.
And I feel that if you have a candidate that's either bold or crazy enough to run, that you should support them and they wouldn't have to spend all of their money. Because it costs money, gas to go to the candidate forums. This year, we've had so many candidate forums. The last one was last night. So that's how you can help a candidate, volunteer. Now, some candidates are able to pay volunteers to stand at the polls and hand out their material. $15 to $20 an hour. That's not me. I'm looking for volunteers.
Volunteers.
Yeah. But
because you're community based. Right. And I love that. Yes. So we have a question in the chat, and I know we talked about it a little bit already, but the question is, how do you inform people to research each candidate regardless of party? And do you have to vote straight ticket or can you vote split ticket?
No. When you go to the polls, they're going to ask you what party you're in, and you're going to get a ballot for that party. Unaffiliated,
so you can't.
Libertarian, and you have to vote for the candidates that are on your ballot.
So let me ask a question. Let me throw something in on that question. Can you vote? Can you write someone in? So
you can, but I don't know how much good it's going to do.
Okay. I'm just wondering because I know I've had other people ask that question as well. Can you vote split ticket? But you don't. Okay,
No,
so
if I'm correct, you cannot.
So we are getting close to the end of our time together. It went so quickly. But what I want to do is I want to give you the opportunity to let the people of District C in Raleigh, North Carolina know why they should vote for Dr. Portia Rochelle. And then I do have one last question, but we're going to ask that at the very end. So let the people in North Carolina and District C know why they should vote for you for Raleigh City Council.
Thank you for that opportunity. You should vote for me because I believe this district deserves a person that's committed, a person that's fearless. I have a very big mouth. I was a cheerleader growing up. I don't mind speaking up and speaking out. And I'm described as a courageous leader. And I tell people quickly, it's not about me, it's about my community. I just want to be a helper. And I want to remind people that once I'm elected, I will only have one vote. So I encourage people to come to the city council meeting, voice your opinions on what is being voted on. You've got to support the candidate that you put in. I'm a dedicated person. Whatever I get involved in, I go all the way. So I am dependable. I'm trustworthy. And again, I will challenge anyone that opposes your constitutional right. And I work for the best interests of the community. It's not about me. It's about the community. I've been doing things in the community for a long, long time. I think I touched something. And I usually close with, I know I look 25, but I've been around a while, so I know a few things. I know how to collaborate. I know how to work together. I know how to help people get what they want. There were several instances where I had to meet with families dealing with police brutality. Some of those families said that they couldn't even get a return call. But when they call me and I pick up the phone and call, we have a meeting. So I know how to work together and bring people together. I know how to de-escalate, work together so everyone can be heard.
Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. And you all, for your Raleigh citizens, this is one of your candidates, Dr. Portia Rochelle, and she is running for Raleigh City Council for District C. So make sure regardless of, as I stated before, this is not an endorsement, but regardless of who you vote for on November the 5th, we want to make sure that you get to the polls and that you cast your vote so that your voice can be heard, because your vote is important.
Oh, one other thing. You may have people that are in a nursing home or in the hospital. Make sure you get their absentee ballot.
That's good. And I don't think people think about that. But so I'm glad that you said that. So you're at the hospital and the nursing homes. They can't go out. You can make sure.
You need to make sure that the ballot gets to them. And another thing, we need to make sure that you're still registered to vote. There's been a purge going on throughout the U.S. Any reason, they just take you off the poll. So keep checking up until the time you go cast your vote to make sure that you're registered to vote. It does not have anything to do with whether or not you missed an election before. Some people are being pulled off just because they can. So make sure you're registered to vote.
And if you're in Virginia and you are watching, that actually just happened here in Virginia as well. And the change had just happened that those people could not be taken off of the registration list, and that they can't make that change. There's a certain period, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I know it is called between a certain time and November the 5th that they cannot be purged from the list. So thank you so much for bringing that up. See, Dr. Rochelle, you maybe do a little bit of research before the interview. So two last things that I want to ask you. What is your theme song? Do you have a theme song that motivates you or encourages you, or that you plan to play once you win your seat on the Raleigh City Council?
Oh, there are two songs that motivate me. A Change Is Gonna Come And while I'm campaigning, even though I'm physically tired, I'm not spiritually tired. The old folk used to sing it all the time. I don't feel no ways tired.
Okay. I don't know that one, but I'm gonna have to look that one
You're
up.
too young.
And then the last thing, so the people may not want to know, but Mrs. JSpire wants to know, what are you wearing on voter day?
Purple. I'm going to wear something purple. I'm the purple queen, and I usually wear, you can't see the purple in my hair, but I usually wear purple streaks in my hair, purple outfit, purple jewelry, purple shoes, purple nails. That's what I'm wearing.
And what's the purple for? Because that's my favorite color too. So what's the purple for you?
Purple brightens me, it inspires me, it motivates me, and it reminds me that I am a child of the king.
Yes, and that's
Royalty.
what, yes. And you know what? It reminds me that I'm royalty, and it reminds me of the leader in me when I
Yes,
wear purple.
yes,
Absolutely. So Dr. Rochelle is going to be rocking out in her purple on November the 5th. And
yes,
she's going to be playing some A Change Is Gonna
yes.
Come.
See the purple?
So
See the
and she
purple?
has that up there, Dr. Rochelle for Raleigh City Council District C. So you all, I thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Like I said, we don't do a lot of political shows. I think this is actually the second one, but I'm so thankful and honored that I had a call to action and that I accepted the call and that I was able to interview you tonight. Now, listen, when you win city council, I know I'm not in Raleigh, so you're gonna have to give somebody else the first interview. But I'm gonna need to be promised at least the second one, and I'll be in the first thing smoking to Raleigh to do it in person.
Okay. We promise you we will do that. We will have a party, a celebration, and we'll go
and,
live.
and we'll go live. So
Exactly.
thank you so much for thank you for your investment in your community. Thank you for advocating for your community. Like I said, you are, regardless of who you vote for, we want you to vote because, as Dr. Rochelle has said, your vote is important, your voice is important, and people would not try to stop you from voting if it did not count. So it does count. So I want to thank everyone that's watched on Facebook tonight on JSpirations Live. Also want to thank our everyone that's watching on YouTube as well. If you watched this and you enjoyed it, I know you enjoyed it because I did. So make sure that if you have any friends, if you have any family that lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they are in District C, make sure that you share this information with them. Let them know that Dr. Rochelle is on the ballot. Encourage your people to go vote. It's really important. This is a monumental election, not just for presidency, but for our local and our state government as well. We have to understand that the president is only he or she is the president, but they have senators in their cabinet, and they have to have people in there that have their best interests as well. Right. And Cornelia said, know your candidates for all offices and vote on your truth. Absolutely. Vote for what's important to you. And remember that, everybody has their own opinion. So when you go, like Dr. Rochelle said, be patient, right? Don't get frustrated. We want to make sure that you're respectful. We want to make sure that we're safe. So go, be prepared, have what you need. Stay in line as long as you need to. And even if it's after 7, if the polls have closed, if you are in the door, if you are in the line, then you still have the right to vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. Even if you're outside, wrapped around the building, if you're in line at 7:30 when they close the poll, you can still vote.
All right, so you all, thank you so much. Remember, JSpirations Live, we are live every Friday night for Fill Up Friday, Fill Up Friday Live. And during that time, we come together to encourage each other, to motivate each other, and to make sure that if we came empty, then we are full when we leave. And if we came full, that we are sharing some type of comment or some type of information that's going to make sure that the other people that came on empty, that they are full when they leave. You all make sure that you practice some self-care. Yes, ma'am.
I want to mention my power scripture,
Okay.
Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. That keeps me going.
And you all, that was our Fill Up Friday word for the night. Did you guys hear that? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Thank you so much for that. So I love you all. Please practice self-care. If you see someone that does not have a smile, please be sure to give them one of yours.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Make sure that you vote, vote, vote. I will, after the show tonight, I will drop Dr. Rochelle's information in the comments as well. So if you do live in the city of Raleigh and you have questions for her, you'll be able to contact her. Make sure that you do your research. She has one more thing before we close.
My website, RochelleForRaleigh.com.
Okay. And so I'll drop that into the comments as well. So you guys make sure you share. So I love you all. Dr. Rochelle, I want to ask you to stay on. I love you all. Continue to JSpire. And as always, be JSpire.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.